Well, the first thing I wanted to start off with was I was looking at your personal website, and on your personal website, it lists your titles in the order of producer, mixer, writer, musician. Why is musician last?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't think I really like thought about it that much, but I think I probably just liked the way those words looked in that order, to being honest. But if you would have asked me when I was 20, I would have said it would have been musician, engineer. That's probably what all it would have said. And then
Okay.
as it's just kind of slowly grown, engineer. It probably then would have been engineer. It probably would have been musician, writer, and then it would have been musician, writer, producer, engineer, and then it just started to flip. It's just one of those things. Uh,
Okay.
you make your living a long time on tour, and then you start making your living in a studio, and it just kind of, I guess, what people know you as changes a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that, in addition to the producing you've done for your own band, you've been producing other artists. And I'm curious, how has producing other artists influenced how you create sounds or songs for the wind and the wave?
Uh, I will say that, I don't know how much you know about my discography or stuff, but there's a guy that I've made I guess his last 8 records named Bob Schneider. Do you know? Are you a songwriter fan? Yeah. Kind of a
Yeah,
legend from
I've read
around,
of him.
yeah, kind of a legend from around here. And, he's the type of
And
guy
around
that'll
there
sell
being Austin, just to clarify?
Austin, Texas. Yeah. And he's the type of
Yes,
guy
okay.
who will sell out, Bowery Ballroom up in New York in an hour when he puts tickets on sales. But it's kind of one of those people, if you know him, you know him. Not everyone knows him.
Hmm.
Uh, but making records with him, and when I first started producing, he was one of the first real records that I did, and it, he's so fly by the seat of your pants, and I'm so organized that that was just a real, for my type A brain, it was a very difficult record for me to make because it was just, I never knew if I was even getting anything usable. It's just so scattered and everything's just coming out of him because he's a true, genuine artist. But that process for me kind of informed the rest of my record making in that it's okay if it's rough around the edges, and it's okay if you're not sure if you have it on day one, and it's cool to let people just try their stuff on it and see what you have the next day or the next morning or whatever, and which is not the way I originally started working. And usually it's, I must do this and accomplish this goal, and then I must accomplish the bass and the guitars, and now I must get and I'll do whatever now when an artist is ready to sing, and if all we have is a kick and a clap, let's sing, let's do
Right.
it.
Well, okay, well then that makes me wonder because I saw an interview where you were talking about Butch Walker producing the second Wind and the Wave album, and you described him kind of in a similar manner, just really, really quick and, amazing how, you booked a month for this and he got it done in 9 days and he was just very organic and let's go with the feel at the time. Where was that experience compared to, in line of working with the other gentleman?
Well, most of the Wind and Wave records I've produced, but with that one in particular, we had been on our first record on RCA, which did pretty well. We had been on tour for that record for a long time. Probably something like 14 of, 24 months of a 2-year cycle.
Wow.
And in between that, I had made a couple of records, and so it just felt like I'd never stopped at all. And then I have older kids, trying to see my kids and my wife and stuff. So I was just super burned out when we had actually switched from RCA to Island at that point. And we had written everything, and I had done acoustic demos, and they were like, okay, we signed you, we gave you this money, you need to do the record. And I kept trying to start, and not finding it. You know what I mean? Just kind of off the
Yeah.
mark. I liked the demos a lot, but I just couldn't find it. And so I called at the time Rainey Hancock, our A&R person, and I said, "Hey, I don't think I'm supposed to make this record." And she was like, "What?" Because she planned on me making every record, I'm quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, I'm too burned out. Either you got to wait for like a year, or you got to take these songs and put me in with someone else. We both agreed on Butch, and yeah, we booked a month with Butch, and then 9 days later, walked out with a done record. And Patty and I were both going, "Is there a record in there? I don't. Do you remember what we recorded on the first song? I mean, I really don't. It was so fast."
Wow. And so, you've said that you're now working on your fourth during this quarantine time. Are you trying to be, if looser is the term, but a little bit more seat of your pants and a little less type A, or are you just comfortable with the precision you usually bring to things?
Yeah, I mean, what I've figured out is my records sound like me, no matter what.
Mm,
Even when I try to do it the way Butch would do it, or try to do it the way, someone I admire's production, the way they would do it. If I try to make a Chad Blake record or something, I just can't do that. What I'm good at is what I do. So I don't even think there's a lot of thought to me in terms of being like super organized or whatever. It's just I do have a method, and it does kind of yield my production sound, I guess. Even when I try
yeah.
to throw a wrench in it, I can't for whatever reason.
Well, okay, well, yeah, and it sounds kind of like when artists do cover songs, no
Yeah,
matter what, you end up putting your own spin on it. You can play the exact same notes, exact same time, but somehow it always comes out with a little bit of your own twist. And so it sounds
totally.
like that's how you're describing your producing.
Yeah, totally. I just kind of follow, I always try to serve the song and just follow the song down the path and wherever it ends up. When we first started, we had kind of a different sound than, say, record three with The Wind and the Wave. And uh, I was a little worried about that, even record two, like it's easy to make a record when you don't have any fans. And when Patty and I started making that record, we had minus 200 fans, like we didn't even have a band name. And for it to be signed a couple of months later and out was weird, and it's even weirder then to go, oh, well, do people expect this record from us? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So my decision was, I guess, but I don't think I can do that record again. I just have to do whatever's coming out at the time.
Yeah. But I mean, and getting to that, because I always thought that was fascinating, because you've said that when you and Patty first got together, there was no intention for anyone to ever hear those initial songs, and I'm wondering, did you have like an extra bit of creative freedom doing that? Because now that you've been in the biz for a while, and so many people write things with the intention of, all right, this has got to play well on radio, or fit in with some A&R man's idea of what's sellable. So I imagine, I'm just curious about going to the process with, what, no one's going to hear these. Let's just let loose.
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of a commercial vibe to what I do anyway. Even when I try not to, um, I emphasize hooks and stuff. It's just kind of maybe it's what I came up on or whatever. But uh, you know, it is freeing when you don't think anyone's going to listen or whatever. But I would be a liar if I didn't say also that I knew when we recorded the first two songs that they were very good. I was like, oh, this
Mm,
is actually really good. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it was really good, you know? And at the end of that process, playing it for my wife and then playing it for a few friends in the business, but friends, it was clear that it was good. And I can't answer honestly if I was still steering that towards like, well, in case someone does hear this, you know what I mean? I can't truthfully say because otherwise I'd probably do some weird noise rock record that I really wouldn't want anyone. So
all
I
right.
would
Well,
probably
that.
wanted to make that commercial too, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, that all right, so that makes me think of two things. Number one, is that something that you recommend other songwriters do? Is try and adapt that attitude of, okay, let's go in thinking no one's ever going to hear this.
Um, I would say that's a tough question, actually. I would say that if you're writing for other people, because in this game, a lot of it, if you're a professional songwriter like Patty and myself, also, if like you write for other people, when you're writing for them, I'm just trying to grab a piece of their soul and at the same time make something that I think is great. I am not a type of person that can go, I have to write a radio song. Literally, the second I do that, it's a big pile of shit. Every single time.
Mm.
But I can think to myself, oh, that chorus should be hookier. But that's for me. Like, I want it to be hookier. I want to sing along to it. I want to enjoy it. So I'm always the type of guy, especially with like the bigger bands I've done, like Missio and stuff like that. I just want people to do it's in their heart, like their art,
Mm-hmm.
And if that is commercial, then great.
Yeah.
If that works on the radio, even better. Because what the worst thing to have happen to you, and I know plenty of people it's happened to, is to have a song blow up that you hate.
Mm. Yeah.
And then the rest of your career, you're like, oh, shit.
Right.
Sugar Ray, you have like the song at the end of a record blow up, and then like you have to completely change everything about yourself going forward. And it's like, that doesn't sound fun.
Right. Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, you would think more people would have that in mind of, look, it could happen to anything, so please make sure it's something you don't mind singing over and over again. I don't know if they had the same perspective or not, but there was I always heard stories of when REM was touring in support of the Green album, and they would go into stand. They would go into stand, and he would introduce it by saying, "And now the dumbest song that has ever been written."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like Stipe to begrudge his success, but
Right.
But I mean, if you compare that to Driver 8, no, it's not as good. You know what I mean? Like the first two REM records are unfreaking believable,
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I totally get why Stand just catches you. It's just got hooks galore, and it's just
Yeah. I would argue that Shiny Happy People has got to be hokier than that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Even though it's laden with irony, I mean, that's a hokey tune.
Right, yeah. I don't, and possibly because of Kate Pearson doing the supporting vocals. I don't know, but
oh yeah, that does add a bit of whimsy to it. Yeah. Well, you dropped the name. Even I'd have been like, Beehive Girl. I don't
know. Yeah, and God, we could go on and on with REM, and there's so many stories in that background. And well, all right. So since we stumbled onto the topic, singing, Patty has a very distinct voice, and what I'm wondering is, because you do backing vocals on songs, what is the key to supporting her as a backing vocalist?
Well, backing vocals is something I just became good at because it just seems like no matter how good a band is, no one can sing their harmonies. Most lead singers aren't great at their own harmonies, and if they are, it doesn't blend right. And there's always like one guy in the band is like, I mean, I kind of do the harmonies live, and then you get him on the mic, and it's like, no, you don't. And so I just got good at harmonies because, 20 years ago, because someone had to do it. And that person just became me. And the key to harmonies to me is phrasing, the same as the singer, and hitting vowel sounds the same. If you're hitting the vowel sounds and phrasing it the same, you can really disappear into a vocal, which is what I'm looking for. on a harmony. And so with Patty, first off, I sing higher than I've ever sung in my life to support Patty often. And I'm a giant man. I'm 6'4". I'm a big boy, and for some reason, I can sing higher than a girl sometimes. And so it just kind of naturally works with us the way we sing together. We have our timbres seem to work together well. But I did have to kind of like learn to, especially early on in her career, she sang really weird vowels. Like she said the word love, she would always say love instead of love. She would say love. And if I would say love, it would never match. So I just started matching her love kind of vibe, and it works. That's how I try to do it with her. And she does have a unique voice, so much so that I don't know how long you've known about our band or been listening to us, but in the last 7 years, there's a lot of girl singers I hear of newer bands that I'm like, they were fans of Patty, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I hear it in their phrasing. I hear it, and that's cool. It's cool that she's influenced. She's the most self-deprecating, humble person in the world. She would be like, no one would ever copy my style, but they do. People do. So.
Yeah, and well, so I mean, how come you go higher when you harmonize? Because you can be lower than the lead and harmonize, and it seems.
Yeah. Occasionally I do that, but the problem with our music is where Patty likes to sit in the vocal, which is not, except for a few songs, very high for a girl. She's more in the mid-range for a girl and sometimes low. It just kind of bottoms out. It makes a song sound heavier than it needs to be. So it has made sense to me, for the most part, to be above her. Or I do a lot of unison with her, too, where I sing with her at the same time. So, I don't know, it sounds better with our voices.
Yeah. And her little different pronunciations, is she conscious of that, or is it just what comes out?
Yeah, she wasn't until, I would say, record 3. She was like, have you listened to record 1 in a while from the wreckage? And I was like, no. She said, I said words really weird. And I was like, yeah, you did. And she's like, I don't think I do that much anymore. And then I started to notice, and no, she doesn't. It has changed. And if you really listen to Robert Plant at the beginning and listen to Robert Plant now, great singers who can sing anything, which Patty is one of those singers, they just evolve. They just change the way they're approaching stuff. You don't know if they get bored or their voice just matures or changes, but they change. Or listen to Aerosmith. I mean, Toys in the Attic is such a different record than when he's doing Living on the Edge. He's like a different guy.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think she just kind of naturally changed her timbre and the way she says stuff. I think if she thought about it, she'd probably be a terrible singer.
I mean, because it makes me think of you were talking about early, like Robert Plant. Also, it makes me think of like early Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger stuff. And there's some words that he would just twist and stretch and all this. And if you took it out of its context, you'd be, what? Why is this makes no sense. But then when you put it in with the sound and the tempo of the song, it's like, oh yeah, it's suddenly, I don't know, way more interesting this way.
Well, and that's the problem with like the American Idol / voice culture, I don't care personally as a producer or someone I'm looking for when I'm developing. I don't care if you have a good voice or a classically great voice or what. That means zero to me. I would rather someone come in like Chris Robinson from the Crows or Mick from, and come in and phrase super weird and do things, and I would be like, oh, that's really interesting, and mean it,
Yeah.
Then do a bunch of vocal runs and me go, wow, you have a very impressive vocal range. I don't care.
You're right.
I just don't care about that, I love Iggy Pop. And Iggy Pop can barely hit a note, like I just want something behind my vocals that's real. And Patty, that's the thing I think that most people take for granted with her is it's real as shit. Like
Mm.
her lyrics are journal entries, super real approaches. So when she's singing a thing, it's like it's a page out of her life. It's real stuff. It's not, you know, let's
Yeah.
write a song. Everybody hold your hands up high or whatever for an
Uh,
NFL commercial.
Right, right. And speaking of that, you talked about how if you know her, if you're in her circle, she will eventually write something about you or related to you, and be brutally honest about it in its characterization. Um, is there ever a getting used to that, or were you cool with that from moment one, or was it odd the first time it happened to you?
Um, I I will say this: it doesn't happen to me as much,
Hmm.
but for whatever reason, but to be a friend of hers or her husband, who is a hell of a man because he has heard his name or his personages in those songs a lot.
Hmm.
I think you just have to be a pretty strong person. I think they've done some couples therapy about lyrics that she's written before. Because I mean, you can't just leave. I mean, to the point to where I don't know if I said that in the interview you saw, but where I've said after she's presented a lyric before, "Are you sure you want to sing that?" I mean, you're gonna have to have a real conversation with at least two people
Hmm.
singing that, and she's just like, "I can't do it any other way. This
Hmm.
is the way I do it." So,
Hmm.
you know, speak your truth, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could tie that into the whole, different pronunciation thing. It's just genuine feeling and genuine emotion, and I'm
Yeah,
not put.
she never says names, so I think there's plausible deniability. You know, like, oh, that's just an amalgam of people. That's not you.
You're
You know.
right, right. Um, and I also saw you've talked a lot about your love of doing acoustic sets,
That's been
and
fun.
not just now in quarantine time, but when you've done them in front of small audiences, or even when you've done them in front of big audiences, and just the stripped down set and everything. How often do you write with that possibility in mind?
Never.
Really?
And yeah, never. Though most of our songs, and I can't say this about the new record because I've been starting on different instruments, but in the past, most of our songs started with me on an acoustic on a couch somewhere. So getting them back to that place was never that difficult. I'm not sure the new record will work that way as much. Maybe it will when I examine it from that space, but I've started a lot of songs on this record on bass, stuff like that. Like
Hmm.
just because I've been trying to force myself down a different hole a little bit,
Okay.
or different path, I should say. And so it's never thought about, but when we rehearse the sets, there are songs that just frankly are better that way that we do. You know, some of our songs are better without the production and without everything. They're just,
Hmm.
uh, we just did we did a theater tour with Kelly Jones when he was doing a solo tour from Stereophonics, and that was 5,000 people a night, and Patty and I were doing just her and I up there and acoustically, and he had a full band, and we were crushing those places, like
Hmm.
seated. We were crushing
Yeah.
those places because it's just kind of a, it just sounds braggadocious, I guess, but there's just kind of a power to us when we're just as quiet as we can be. There's something that really works about that vibe for us. And I know that our particular fan group um, really likes that version of us.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I always thought that was a bit of magic when some artists can take a arena and make it a very intimate setting.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say not everyone's songs work that way though, not everyone's songs work without the bombast.
yeah.
Ours just in their core, at least up to now, in their core are quiet acoustic songs, no matter how they were presented.
Yeah. So then when you're writing them, you more think about, okay, the drums should be like this and the bass will be like this, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, if it's when I'm starting demos or a record, I'm usually seated by myself alone. And I have a scratch vocal from Patty or something from just when we made the iPhone demo, usually is how we kind of finish
Oh,
writing. There's a version
okay.
of her singing with me with a guitar or on a piano or something. And I'll just
Hmm.
start working to that. Um, and I'll try all kinds of things. I mean, uh, on the first record, I did very little straight drum kit. There's not one cymbal on that record, which was unique for me. I'd never made a record with no cymbals, like no crashes, no hi-hats, no nothing. There's nothing to signify like downbeat. There's none of that on that record.
Yeah.
And that was a conscious decision made after day 2 when I put a crash cymbal on a song and Patty went, "What's that?" Cuz she's just not that person. She's a artist. She doesn't care. She goes, "What's that?" Shh. I was like, "That's it's a crash cymbal." She's like, "Yeah, take that out. Otherwise it's perfect." And I was like, "Oh, I wonder if I can make a record without any shhs."
Yeah.
And we did. We did.
And then, talking about settings, it says on the band's website that the album Human Beings Let You Down was a record made in hotels and backstage dressing rooms across the U.S. Um, how did that influence what you created? How did, the rotating location?
Well, I mean, I think it was, we had drums and bass done, and then the rest of it was me sitting in a hotel room or a backstage recording an acoustic track. And then I would send it off to a guy who was playing bass on that record, and he would play bass on it and send it back to me. And then I would add some electrics, or one of my touring guys would come in and add some electrics to it. And I think in terms of like with Patty, it just made her have to be a lot less meticulous in terms of her singing.
Hmm.
Because, at 2 a.m., she's tired. Like Human Beings, for instance, was sung very late in a hotel room. I don't remember where, but very late in a hotel room to the point to where the manager knocked on the door because we were, she's singing in a fucking hotel room at 2 a.m. And, but, just being, and for me as an engineer, not being precious about sounds, using whatever we had out there. And, there's some songs where you hear Allison Pierce, who was opening for us on that tour, sound checking. Uh, if you solo her vocal performance, you can hear Allison Pierce sound checking. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
but the vocal performance was such that I was just like, well, it's really good. I'm just gonna keep it, and it's just gonna be
Hmm.
that. And it turns out that no one cares, and it's, if it's good, it's good.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then along those lines, you've been doing, these quarantine shows. Does it still have the same feel, even though you can't see the audience?
No,
Hmm.
no. I mean, there's something about, especially on our acoustic stuff, there's kind of like this feeling of power when you are playing in front of 5,000 people and they're dead silent. There's like this
Hmm.
feeling, even where you can tell they're afraid to kind of go, like they're
Yeah,
trying not to do that or move in their chairs because it's so loud, and you can kind of see people go like, quiet, like they
yeah.
just can't. And UK people will get on you. And so there's a really nice feeling to finish a song like that and then feel a room kind of like pulse and then go, oh shit, that was awesome.
Hmm.
You don't get that when I don't know if you do your podcast by yourself ever or anything, when you talk and then no one responds, or you crack a
Yeah.
joke and no one laughs. It's weird, you know?
Hmm.
So it's weird on our streams to to not hear someone clap. So what Patty did is she loaded a clap into this little thing that she plays it on. So
Yeah.
on the last stream, every time we'd play a song, she would just press the clap.
Right.
So it just felt like a little more normal for us.
Right. Although I wonder about, because, for a lot of musicians, that's how it starts, is just playing songs in your bedroom with dreams of being on a stage somewhere. And so, it's kind of this weird coming full circle kind of thing.
For sure. I mean, I definitely, used to listen to Joshua Tree and, as a kid when I was a touring drummer and have vision. Like, I just knew that one day the drummer was going to break his hand and I was going to be available. And I was going to fill in and join you too, But so I've had all those thoughts and feelings for sure, all the way to playing big arenas and stadiums and stuff. And there's still nothing like playing for people. There's a cutoff for me, though. I'm not like a traditionalist in terms of like, I don't care about playing guitar by myself. I don't get a lot of pleasure or art derived from that. I don't care about playing music by myself, really.
Mm-hmm.
When I play, and Patty's the same way, we feel like there's like this 150 person cutoff. If there's less than 150 people there, it feels like, especially like you're in Cleveland, Ohio,
Yeah.
and there's 135 people. You're like, what are we doing in fucking Cleveland, Ohio? But for whatever reason, our cutoff at 150, when there's above 150, you're just like, all right, it's a show. Let's go get sweaty and do this, or get quiet or whatever. I don't know. I can't explain that. But I've never wanted to do music for music's sake, meaning where it's just like in my bedroom or whatever. It doesn't mean anything personally to me. It's a shared experience for me.
Yeah. No, I find it interesting because sometimes you hear artists who've gone big and they lament that they can't get it back down into club size where they can really feel the energy of the crowd. And sometimes if you get
that, I understand. I mean, we just did an arena tour with Stereophonics, and that's 21 to 26,000 people a night. And it's true. I mean, the lights hit and the lights come up, house lights go down, lights come up, and then you can't even see the front row of an arena, with the barrier and everything.
Right.
So it is weird. And you're in in-ear monitors and stuff. It is weird. You finish a song and then you wait for the applause to pop in your ears because there's no other real like ambience or whatever. So I definitely understand people being like, yeah, I can't wait to play a club again. But I got to tell you, when you watch a band like Stereophonics or anybody, the Stones or whatever, and the crowd is singing the song louder than the band, man, that's an incredible feeling. Like that's sick. And I would definitely rather hear that from 21,000 people than 210.
Right. No, I totally agree. I've never been on the stage for that, but as a fan, it's still a fantastic experience.
Even, in the crowd, it's like, but I got to tell you, if you ever can be side stage on a giant show with a band that has songs that people sing back at them, like an Oasis kind of band, it's different. Because when you're in the crowd and you're doing it forward, you're getting like the people around you in your ears too, shouting, "Oh, Sally, go away!" You're doing that, but you're hearing yourself and the people around you. When you're side stage or up on the stage and that's happening, you can't hear yourself. It's like, it's so loud, it's overwhelming. I wish everyone could experience something like that from the front one time,
Yeah. No, and that's something I'm missing right now.
Well, if you're a person that lives for live music, which, a lot of our fans are those type of fans, we have fans that tell us on our streams, on the chats or whatever they're called, like, I go to 3 shows a week. This is This has changed my existence. I don't know how to be who I am anymore, Like their entire social circle is around shows and their favorite bands, and they can't
Yeah.
even. That's got to be devastating for that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. God, it's been a long time since I went to that many shows in a week, but yeah, for me, it's a regular occurrence, and this is going to be a fun summer of shows too, with
Yeah.
lots of people coming through town and stuff that I really was hoping to hear. And again, yeah, there's just that, I mean, that's why I think, it's always been the one saving grace of the music industry is you cannot, you can't really bootleg a live show,
Yeah.
you
And
you you
never
you
replace. Yeah.
you can't, burn that illegally. It's just, you can get the DVD, but it's still not the same. Even a really well-produced DVD is still not the
Nah,
same.
man. You got to be standing there and you got to smell the skunk in the room, and you know, it's just, the haze and the lights and the spilled beer on the floor and all that stuff. It's just part of it. And
Yeah.
we had all of our summer shows canceled too, all of our Feelings Club tours, which is our acoustic show in America. And, our agent was like, don't even ask me to book a show till mid 2021. I'm not even going to do it. I won't do it
Mm.
because it's going to get canceled, or it's going to be at quarter capacity and you won't be able to make your money. And, he's just like, just you do not count on playing shows till, basically summertime next,
Mm.
for us.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
shit.
I know. Yeah. I have some clients that still have some stuff on the books for like July onward, and you know, they're a little pessimistic, but they're still, it's that fingers crossed. Maybe we can figure out some way to do it, and
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
like
not.
I see people doing the drive-in theater thing and stuff like that. I just don't have any interest in that.
Hmm.
If I want to do it with everyone pressed up against each other the way concerts are supposed to be, or I kind of don't want to do it. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? I'll
Yeah.
do it. I'll do it from this closet. Otherwise, it's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to. The idea is not to create a virtual concert in person. It's, to create a genuine in person kind of feel.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then without asking you to give anything away, again, you're working on your fourth album. How much of that album, be it the song topics, the mood, is being influenced by this bizarre world that we find ourselves in?
Well, in terms of lyrics, you'd have to ask Patty. I've noticed that a bunch of her lyrics in this stuff has been about grounding and putting her feet in the grass, and I've been hearing stuff about mindfulness in her. I think so. I think in her own way, it is about her own experience in this time and trying to find some normalcy in it. But it, I haven't had her write a lyric since my son and we got tear gassed out protesting the first weekend of the protests, and
Oh,
I had some kind of like PTSD vibes from that, so I can only imagine what the black culture has had their entire lives. But it was a kind of a scary time for me, and my son's 17 and is learning about whether you can't that you can't control an adult, and they're gonna go do their thing, and um, I'm curious if some of that's gonna come out. She's been, obviously very thoughtful about all that stuff. I'm curious if some protest stuff is going to come out, or just
hmm,
her thoughts on it, or if she stays completely away from it. I mean, the thing that a lot of people don't know about Patty is she's a Mexican American. She is has a Mexican passport, and she identifies as white because I think she grew up mainly in a white part of San Antonio and went to a white high school. But, um, you know, her mother's from Cancun, and I feel like she has a whole other side that probably exploring right now, and I'm curious to see what comes out lyrically.
hmm.
You know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're only 7 songs into that record, and it's only 7 songs into the demoing. So I had this whole plan for recording it, and that's kind of up in smoke because it would require us spending some time in Nashville, and I just don't see that happening. So I got to figure out how I'm going to cut it, who I want to cut it with here in Austin, and I don't know. I'm hoping to have it done in the fall, early fall, and then maybe it'd be out in the spring or something. We could get back
Hmm.
out and play a few shows or something. We'll see. And then we have the side record with Kelly Jones. We have a side band with the singer from Stereophonics too, and that record's done, and hopefully that'll be out around the same time. So
Okay, nice.
yeah.
All right. Well, those are all of my questions. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about the new Missio record that I
Okay.
just finished. They moved off of RCA and onto BMG, and this new Missio record is some of the best stuff I've ever done.
Hmm. What?
It's more
What?
alternative electronic stuff, but I finally got it right with them. Where all 3 records, I've been trying to figure out how to inject more organic into what is a very electronic sound on their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of describe this newest record. It feels like the Flaming Lips playing a Missio record. So it's kind of like this
Hmm.
super dirty, organic, cool electronic record. And the first song comes out on the 24th of this month, called Wolves. And I'm really proud of it. So that's something I'm actually very excited about, is that new Missio record.
Is there any way to explain exactly what you figured out, how you came about getting that right sound out of them?
Well, I'll say that we went into that record all with different ideas of what the record was supposed to be. I was trying to make kind of a angrier punk rock record, and Matt, the singer, was trying to make a straight up club record, and David was trying to make a trippy record, which is what is all. And somehow, where usually you kind of bend and meld those things, like, okay, we got to lean a little more club for this song for Matt. So Matt has a tune that he digs on here.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the first song we did, which was called Can You Feel the Sun, which is, I think, what the record is called too, was all 3 of those things at the same time.
Huh.
So it has this club part, and it
Mm-hmm.
has organic, real drums, and it has bass, and then David getting super trippy with sounds around that. And at the end of that, it's got acoustic guitar in it, which we never thought would be in a Missio record. And I don't know, at the end of that song, we were like, oh, well, this is better than anything we've done. This is the sound of this record. We have to come back to this. We just have to keep
Mm.
listening to this song to inform the rest of the songs. And it did. It did. It's a crazy record. It's so good. It's a crazy record.
Yeah, because the way you describe it, it sounds like it would just be this cacophony of all these different noises and things stepping all over each other, but
Yeah.
somehow the gears meshed, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
When you listen at some point when it drops, tell me if you agree that I did it right.
Right. No, no, I believe you. I believe you. Yeah, it's just, well, I think it's one of those things. It's like, you're yet another sound that's going to be indescribable. You have to be able to go and listen and say it's this.
It's a Missio record, but it's just like a very authentic Missio record. I'm proud of it.
Hmm.
I know the boys are super proud of it. So, it's always good. That's my favorite thing about making records is, sending the band out with it and them being like, our new record's the shit. Like them wanting to tour it and wanting to play it and figure out how to play it live. And that's my favorite thing, is when the band
Hmm.
is proud of their art.
And how often, with a case like them, do you then see them live and then, notice things they're doing differently with the song live than when they record it with you?
Well, with those guys, it's unique because I'm kind of like the third member. They would say
Hmm.
that. I don't know if I would say it, but they have said it, so I'll say it. I write all of the songs with them. Um, I produce everything with them. I mix everything. It's just like the three guys in a band that I don't tour in. So what we did do the last two times they got ready for the first tour, which was Loner, and the second tour, which was Rad Drugs, was I sat in big rehearsal rooms with them and helped figure out the show, like dial it in.
Hmm.
Should David be on bass on this song or should he be on keyboards? Should he move to the front of the stage? Should they, the type of thing, because they play as a trio, just a drummer and the two of them. So
Hmm.
there's stuff on track and there's stuff being played and it's figuring out what is what with them. So I with them, I kind of know what the show is when they walk out the door. It is
Yeah.
interesting to see, 6 months from them when they've really dialed it in. That is fun to see. But
Hmm.
with everybody else, yeah, it is. I love finishing a record, and even when I do like country records or whatever, and seeing those guys perform, always great musicians, and seeing the band, which is often not the same band that's on a country record, is not the touring band. So seeing a band's interpretation of that stuff and everything is always, I don't know, it's gratifying for me. I like it.
Yeah. No, I would think that would be an interesting experience, just seeing
Yeah.
this creation go out into the world and all right, and then what does it come back as, later on?
Yeah, I will say you had asked me about um, I forgot what it was, but you had asked me about if making that record with Bob, or whatever, that influenced the rest of my records.
Yeah.
I had forgotten. There's one other thing that happened. We can end on this, but there's one other thing that happened right before that record. I made a record for a pop punk band on Drive Through Records. They were called Halifax. They did okay. A band
Okay.
that did okay, and they were kind of more interested in partying and hanging out. And I love those guys, but they were more interested in kind of partying and hanging out at those days because they were 21 years old. And it was a
Hmm.
difficult record to make in terms of just getting them all in the room and everything like that. And so there was a lot of times I would just play the bass or I would just add a guitar part or I would, and so much so that I was basically making that record. Even when they would come in, I'd be like, play this, you know, just so
Yeah.
I can move the thing along. And it was a great record in the end that didn't sound like them at all, and they couldn't play.
Oh, wow.
So I went and saw them, and the fans liked the record, but then when you went and saw it live, it was like they were not good at that record because it was too.
Oh,
That was a huge early lesson for me. Like, oh, you can't make your record; you have to make their record.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like because you know about the Wrecking Crew, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The famous session musicians that
sure.
played on, everyone from Sinatra to Grateful Dead albums and things
To
like
the
that. So
monkeys.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Beach Boys, the whole
Yeah,
gamut. And so yeah, and that's just what popped into my head. It's like you were a one person wrecking crew kind of thing, and
I was. I was. Yeah, I was. I was making a record in my head and not in their head. And so what I've since done, and I always say this to people, and I can't stand when I'm making a record with someone and they go, I don't know, what do you think? And I'm like, well, what's in your head? I would rather you say something to me and me go, I don't really like that idea. What if it's this? So we can have some
Yeah.
sort of dialogue. What I don't want to
Hmm.
do is say, I don't like, for instance, when you write with someone for their record and they go, well, what do you want to write about? And I'm like, why are you asking me?
Hmm.
Why are you asking me what I want to write about? I want to write about whatever's going on in your shit right now. You
Yeah.
know?
Especially because, in this case, the you is the person that has to go out there and sing this and convey it as believable as coming from this
Yeah,
person.
honest. Yeah, honest. You want it to be honest for them too. So that's something I learned early on that I can't say that I haven't recovered a few records here and there that the band just wasn't maybe up to snuff or ready for it. But
Hmm.
when I can, I let the band really dictate where a record goes.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very cool. It's like um, I did an interview recently with Ben Caesar, who's the drummer for Brad Paisley, and he talked about over the years, you know, and he's one of the few that plays on the album as well as plays live. Um, you know, their communication has gotten a lot better in terms of Brad was never wishy-washy, but it was, you know, he's not a drummer. So, you know, kind of conveying what he wanted to hear out of him. You know, there were some missteps, I think, early on, but now he's like, they got it really dialed in. So it's like, you know, he can just give a few words and, okay, I know what you're going for.
I will say, it is a tough position, and I was a drummer for a long time, to be the drummer in a band with a headstrong singer who knows what he wants but doesn't play drums because they communicate it so badly. They don't know how to say what they want, and it is very difficult for a drummer to figure out what a lead singer wants all the time. I've watched that
Mm.
happen, that exact moment happen where a singer will stop and go, "Wait, what are you doing? Is it that, that is not the groove?" And the drummer thinking, "That absolutely is the groove. That's the groove I've been playing the whole time." And then it turns out that either something was maybe weird in their mix or
Hmm.
tempo was 2 beats too slow, so it just felt different to him, or maybe
Yeah.
he was not used to hearing another instrument against those drums or whatever.
Hmm.
And singers are always notoriously weird, unless they were drummers in a former life, about explaining rhythms that are bothering them. And it's important to them, too, to feel it and pocket with it. So I get that rub, and I imagine it's good, actually. Because Paisley, the other thing is when someone's a star in the lead singer, like not just a lead singer, a star in a lead singer, you're also trying to keep your job and shit. And and also a star lead singer and a ripping guitarist, like a
Yeah.
stellar world class musician. Man, that's a tough boat when he goes, "Hey man, that pocket's not happening. I don't know, man, but it's just not good." And then the whole room knows is looking at the drummer like,
Yeah, yeah. Although, you know, that's the interesting thing when you talk about prepping for tours and all that kind of stuff, because he talked about Brad does not like to play things exactly like the record. You know, he
"Yeah, likes to
wants the,
play. Yeah, he wants to play."
yeah, and they take these solo stretches and stuff, and he's, you know, he said an interesting, Ben said an interesting thing where he's like, you know, I may not be the best drummer in the world, but I think I'm the best drummer for this band because
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where I know where he's gonna go with things or what mood he's in and that kind of thing.
Well, and the best drummer in the world is irrelevant in the same way that the best singer in the world is irrelevant. But best
Yeah,
drummer in the situation, I mean, again, you bring up U2, for on their own, pretty basic musicians. For together, incredible musicians,
yeah, yeah.
They make up for
Um,
each other's deficiencies.
hmm. Yeah, and Bono's even said that Larry and Adam will kind of pull them back to center sometimes,
Yeah.
and gives them credit for that. With just, you know, we started going way too far off to this end, you
Yeah.
know.
You got to have that guy too that goes, "Hey man, remember Sunday Bloody Sunday? Let's just do that again. I want to
Yeah,
play some rock and roll."
right.
You need those guys too. And I will say about Paisley and those type of guys though, you know, one time I saw a Keith Urban concert and I was not that into Keith Urban, and I left that show 2 hours later like, dude, Keith Urban is the shit, and his band was incredible. Talk about long solo breaks and stuff. Just the band was just unbelievable, just
I
incredible.